Hi guys. So we're figuring out how to split the screen with Dan Coller tonight. I think he just has to accept the invitation I just sent him, and then I think the screen will split. It'll probably just take a second, but there's really no way to tell. So before he gets on, since he'd probably be embarrassed anyway, I'll spin a little story of how we met. We've known each other for a really long time. I met him when he was a kid. He grew up in the skate park here, and for a lot of that time I was living in California. But anytime we got a chance, we would come back and do a contest here at the skate park. So when we did that, there were a bunch of people that would travel from out of town, and then one of the main components would be whoever was here locally. And Dan was just this little kid that was at the park all the time, and he was always really respectful and cool, but even then stood out in terms of how he was riding, in terms of how seriously he took his riding and things like that. So we've known each other since he was a kid. And then when I was in California, of course, I stayed following what was going on this side of things, but we hadn't really seen each other again until a couple random meetups, and then hadn't really connected in a more thorough way until last year. This year, Dan had an X Games Real BMX art that I think is still linked in the bio in his Instagram. If you haven't watched that, please go do so. And then one of his main sponsors, Kink, just put out a DVD called Champagne. And if you haven't seen that, we recommend you go get that as well.
Talk to me.
Anyway, hi. So,
what's up, dude? Oh,
let's see if someone can tell us if they can see and hear both of us. Okay, I think.
All right, Mike. Can people hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Yeah, that's good. Good.
Cool. This is easier than I thought. Nice.
My lip reading from this distance would probably not be great.
Mine either.
So what we did is I put a couple of questions together for Dan. He put a couple of questions together for me, and then we got some great questions from people on the internet. So I think, why don't we answer a couple of the internet questions first, and then we'll come back to this list.
Perfect.
And anything that you'd like to take the lead on, please do. By this time of any night, I'm so sick of hearing my own voice.
I don't know, man. You're pretty good at this. I'm not good at talking to people. So.
No, I'm going to have to question that.
I'll see what I can do.
So I'm going to push this question mark. If it does anything weird, apologies. Dan, can you see those two or no?
I can't see anything, no. All
right. So I'm just going to read a couple of these questions, and then I'm going to get them off the screen because I can't see him anymore. From our friend Corey, he said, what injury sidelined you, and how did Mace work help you to rehab the afflicted area? Okay, yeah, that's a good start.
That is a great question. It's an easy one too. I started going to Greg because of an injury, because I separated my shoulder, and he came to me and asked if he could help me, and obviously I would. I'm not an idiot. I want to take that up, and I knew Greg knew what he was doing, and I had full faith in him after going through a knee injury where I had a pretty shitty physical therapist, and I was like, I wanted to get back on my bike ASAP, so I went to Greg, and yeah, he helped get my shoulder back to, I don't even know, 140%, 150, like, it was like nothing had happened after, a month goes by. So it was pretty awesome, and I was in AC joint separation, and it was a stage 3, so I was right under needing surgery, and I was supposed to take like 4 months off my bike, but I had full movement, and Greg was super careful with helping me get into it with like different push-ups and different, basic stuff. And from there we went to Mace stuff, and now I use that thing every day still.
So just to qualify a little bit of that, Dan. Oh yeah, you're getting some feedback already. You're the man, I guess. When Dan came in, I knew that one of the ways that we would need to address things a little differently than usual is that his willingness to hurt himself was going to be extremely high. He was really motivated to get back on the bike, and I knew that was going to happen sooner than later anyway. And so when he says 140%, the way that I take that is I'm really pleased about that. But that was riding bikes almost exclusively, not doing really any strength training. So what we had there was an injury that was the inciting incident, but then really a foundation of strength was built on top of that injury recovery. So it really kind of just hyper sped everything up that he hadn't been doing a ton of training. So that was a good start. Good question. I'm going to push another one.
Cool.
Okay. Someone sent the metal hand. Okay, good. Someone just said hello.
Thanks.
Someone else was trying to get us to promote their whatever the fuck. No, thank you. Yeah, focus training to stay is injury. Yeah, so I'll grab that one from Gypsy, and really it's just a matter of the fact that the training, for anyone that's using training as a foundation for an outside application, it has to balance out. We talked a little about this in the martial arts episode last week. If what you're doing on the training side is so over the top and nonsensical that it impacts your performance in your intended application, then you just missed the mark. So quick answer to an easy question there. The training stays safe because while doing it well is the point, it itself is not the point. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So let's do a couple of ours then. So the first question that I wrote up for Dan was this: what do you like less about riding / BMX now, and what do you like more? And then alongside that, what would you like to see more of as an industry from the riders and then from the companies that are setting the standards?
First and foremost, I think it's hard for me to pick because there's different things I value as I go on through BMX, from being a kid daydreaming in school to being like a flow am kid who's working my ass off to hopefully be pro someday. But I think what I liked the most about, I'd say back then, was just, it was so, not that it's not now, but the purity of I get home from school and I just wanted to go ride. I never worried about what tricks I was doing. I would watch a Mike Aiken Chase Hawk video. I'd go to the skate park and jump the hips all night until, my parents picked me up at 11 o'clock at night. So that was pretty great. But
I can agree with that part of the answer. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'd say for what I dislike about back then, I think there was some sort of, I don't know, I feel like BMX kind of was too cool when I was a kid. Not that it's not now, but there was more of that attitude I'd see where,
I so agree with that.
Everyone was, we were so different and so whatever, but if we were going to be the assholes that were too cool, then we were less cool than everyone else in the first place. So a little bit of that when I was younger, which I'm glad it shied away from.
And I think just for those that don't really have too much of a experience with this thing, there's these weird social caste systems within action sports, and sometimes the people that have gotten a little bit further act like they've gotten a little bit further, and something that I respect about Dan is that I've seen him interact with a ton of people and never even caught the slightest bit of that, and that's a big deal. There's no way I would ever align with anyone that I guess was a little bit too in love with how high they'd climbed.
Yeah, that's just, when at the end of the day too, with anything, but for this, all we're doing is riding bikes, you're not saving people's lives. No one's cooler than the next. It doesn't matter if you can air a quarter pipe higher or what the hell ever. It doesn't matter.
It's true.
And then, okay, to go on part two, I'd say what I like the least about now is not even a BMX problem. I say it's I don't know, whole world problem of everyone wants to prove something on social media. So back then you'd go to a contest or a jam demo with a bunch of pros and you'd go to watch pros. And now you see all these kids who have this Instagram following and in their heads have blown up who they are. They want to go show you who they are, you know?
Yeah.
I'll be somewhere with Nathan Williams, and there'll be some kid trying to do what Nathan Williams is doing just to show, like, look, I can do that too. And it's like, you're missing the point, and you're not enjoying, like, you should be starstruck in a way. Like, these are your heroes. You shouldn't try to prove who you are to them. You should enjoy that you're with them and appreciate that.
I just a quick addition on that. I remember very specifically, I was in California, and Robbie and I were at a skate park, and it was the first experience we had with the BMX dad. We talked about this, and that's kind of, for me, where I started seeing that there was a guy on the sidelines, you know, coaching his poor kid through falling down, because you could tell that dude wanted him to be Nathan Williams, or wanted him to be whoever that was at the time. And again, it's like the point is missed. There's this phenomenal, like, just novelty and innocence to it that if you're trying to emulate everything you see and one up everybody, it's, you know, you might as well just play a conventional sport. Or
and you're robbing yourself of the joy.
Whatever.
And you don't even know it. Like, it's just, there's kids that are so good, like 18, 19, 20, that are, you know, a little older. They're not kids anymore. And they feel the need, like, to prove all this stuff. And instead of, you know, and BMX, to me, still working on a video part, something that takes time and quality, and something you can put together and show, like, this is me, and it'll surprise people because you worked on it for 6 months or a year. A lot of that is gone because a kid will learn a new trick and throw it on his social media that day, and then he'll do it over and over again. And you're like, he'll put out a video, and you're like, I don't care. I've seen him do that every day for the past 6 months.
Well, and I also agree with what you said, that's not necessarily a BMX problem. That's a little bit more of like a cultural attention.
Absolutely. It's a
problem.
Yeah, it's everything. It's not just bike ride related.
A kid puts something up, and all of a sudden, you know, in some ways, I know that we understand why that happens.
Absolutely.
It may be the one thing that person has to offer, or the one thing that they think is going to set them apart. And that I respect. Wanting to stand out, doing what you love, man, we can relate to that. But it's the culture that feeds on that and makes that the most important thing that I think is the bigger problem.
Yeah, and at the same time, I understand, like, if you're a kid who wants to make it BMX, like, this, you feel like this is your outlet now. And to some degree, they're totally right. You know, they have, everything is told them, like, this is the way to do it. And it is for a lot of ways, but I just think it gets rid of, it's like a quantity quality thing. And I think, like I said, it's culture. It's not just BMX. And
it's funny to also think about, like, make it BMX, you know, I mean, it's like, as cool as this is, and as great as a lot of it is, people still just don't realize that. I mean, there's maybe 40, 50 dudes making enough money to live out of this whole industry.
And and I think if you've gotten in the car with your friends, or you've booked a plane ticket somewhere, and you've gone somewhere just to ride your bike with your friends, you've made it. To me, that is making it, you know?
Yes.
That's what matters the most. So.
Yeah. You've got good friends. You're not on the couch. You're doing something cool. You're supporting the small industry.
See some new places. You're doing just fine. Okay, what did I do?
Yeah, so all we were looking for there is what would you like to see more and less of? Essentially, just maybe a tiny extension on what you just said, but let's single it out. To companies, what do you like that's going on now with that side of things, and what would you like to see different?
Like with Kink, we just put 2 years into a DVD, and this company just flew us across the world for 2 years straight. And put time into us. It wasn't about what we were doing on Instagram when we were there. It was what they're going to be proud of and what we're going to be proud of. So companies doing stuff like champagne, and it's free if you go to the Kink website, anyone can order it. Something like that is, like, I'm proud to see companies doing that. And then
I'll buy Chris this week.
Yeah, just have him fucking send you 30.
Anyway.
What else? What I don't like, I gotta be careful here.
Yeah.
No,
let's stay out of trouble, and we'll stay positive. It's better that way.
No, I'll see. Let's see. What I don't like about now with the industry is everyone's reaching for, you know, a lot of companies are reaching for that big name. Like, they want that big name rider when there's other companies that are grooming riders, you know, Flow and Pro, and they're working their way up, and they're like growing as a person and as a rider. I think there needs to be more of that. I don't see much of that right now, and I don't know if that's the industry's problem or if it's, you know, kids jumping the gun, but I think that would be something cool to see more of, because that's how it works for me.
I can speak to the history of that a little bit, just because I've been around a while. Is that there was a tipping point in which big companies saw a real value to having the top level guy, and they don't really have the interest or the skill set or whatever to groom them up, but they have the money to buy them.
Yeah.
And while I was never really the kind that would be like, hey, don't succeed, for myself and for most of the people that I really respect the most, you know, one path was definitely clearer and cleaner than the other. You know, anything that's bought and paid for is bought and paid for. But, you know, if you build it yourself, you've got something else.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's exactly what you said, though, is I think that's like just a large, that's like a large company situation that we only see in BMX, but it's everywhere. I mean, you think about professional sports, on a more conventional level. I mean, there's a lot of places that aren't investing time and energy into like maybe the next big thing. They're going to wait till that thing is big, and then they're going to fucking pluck it, and they're going to pay it $1 million.
So true. But I mean, it's also, I think, just the culture of things right now. Like, you know, you want the best and you want it now.
Oh, yeah, man, everything is disposable. And as much as it sucks to think about, that translates into BMX in the same way it translates into fitness.
Absolutely.
So one of Dan's first question to me, and then we'll get back to a couple on the Tanya TV here, is he asked, do I see similarities in the BMX industry from my time there to the strength and conditioning industry? And have I always seen and felt there to be a direct correlation between the two? And it's a good question. There are a ton of, I guess, negative similarities between the fitness industry and the BMX industry, but they're just extrapolated in fitness. Any type of any type of industry that has a mainstream is always going to feel like it's squashing the underground, even though the underground is what's actually creating the progress. And with BMX, that happened a little bit, but with BMX, it was just so pronounced and clear who was driving the progress. And it was it was the underground teams, and it was the small companies. And with fitness, it's a little different because in general, it's just mass consumption. Fitness hasn't really had an underground. There were a couple people that did more of an independent thing with fitness, and they did it really well for a while. But it never really felt counterculture-y to me.
Yeah.
So for me, there are similarities and differences in those industries, and I guess the short story is subculture to me has always felt like pieces of the same puzzle. I addressed anything I did in BMX almost the same way that I would with fitness now, or with Hell on Earth, or whatever we've done. And oftentimes it's just really kind of a means to an end type strategy. Even this week, I was talking to a friend of mine in Austin that that many people think may not still exist, and we were talking about some of the sketchy shit that I did at Tip and Primo just to get riders paid and to get
Aaron Ross and I talked about that today.
and I mean, some of the stuff, if looked at without context, would seem kind of criminal and a little bit questionable. But realistically, those were big companies with the foresight and the will to let smaller people in, like myself and like the others that helped develop it. But they weren't going to let it happen. They were going to be the roadblocks that we had to move around. and we did it however we needed to, and we got a lot of riders paid, and we made a lot of great people money. And with fitness, it's been similar but different. But the problem with fitness is it's really, really hard to get anywhere if you're small, because the bigger side of things speaks such strong volumes. There is just a tidal wave of shit in fitness. and in BMX, it's just easier to sift through because it was a much smaller world.
Yeah.
And so I've never felt a direct correlation between the two industries, but definitely how I address them and how we perceive them. I've always felt they were the same. We don't handle Wolf Brigade any differently than we have anything else. You know, it's a few of us making the best stuff that we possibly can every single day. Every single thing we do is as good as we can possibly make it, or why the fuck would we even do it?
Yeah.
And with BMX, and you and I have talked about this, and we don't need to get into it now, but that's part of the reason we directed is I love BMX just as much now as I did when I was a kid, but I had put my entire ass into it for a very long time, and it changed so much I had nothing left to offer. You know, I'm not gonna sell brake pads at ABS for $8 an hour, running one of the biggest companies in BMX and making untold people, most of my great friends, millions of dollars. You know, so anyway, similar and different. But for us, you know, what we do is always going to feel like what we do.
And it's also, I mean, if you walk into, I don't know, a fucking World's Gym versus go to one class at Wolf Brigade, the vibe, the feel, the people there, it's kind of two different worlds.
Yeah.
It's as if I were to fucking step on a vert ramp. Like, I have any business being in there. It's the same type of, you know, it's just...
You'd have better luck on the vert ramp.
I don't know. But that's the thing, is like, from an outside perspective, it is the same thing. But if you step in it at all, you'll see it's two completely different fucking worlds.
Yeah. And well, and this is a small segue, and we'll pull it back in a second, because I don't want to run out of time tonight. But, I mean, my grand design with fitness, even since I got started in that, you know, the early 2000s, was always to train martial artists and bike riders. And I mean, it's funny that ultimately that's been the slowest going. So my prime directive and the things that built me and you know, kind of created my foundation are the things that we're finding the hardest to land, and they'll land, and they're starting to now, but that was unexpected.
These vert comments are...
Anyway, I know.
I gotta stop and laugh for a second.
How am I supposed to be serious? Hold on. All right,
guys, I can't ride a vert ramp.
We're going to go back to your guys' questions for a second. Yeah, some dude really wants us to show his video. Yeah, that's not going to happen, homie. Bailey said, can skaters and BMXers finally get along through their shared disdain of fruit booters and scooters? I mean, I'll just answer that one quick, and Dan can, but with me, I've always thought that was super confusing because I've loved skateboarding my entire life. I mean, someone like John Cardiel for me was the same as watching someone like Dave Perrick. I just thought that they were the greatest, and so the fact that skaters are grumpy is something I've never understood. But, and I'm telling you, there are some kids at the skate park here in Rochester that do some really crazy stuff on scooters. Don't punch me. So anyway,
let's get off that topic real quick.
We're off it. I know. I just lost 34 years of street cred. Come and get it.
Oh man.
So let's see. Oh yeah, someone commented quickly that 80s and 90s jock mentality is somewhat migrated to BMX and skating a little bit, but those things will never fully adopt that culture. It's always going to be underground because ultimately most of it is criminal activity.
Yeah, it can't be mainstream.
That can't never be ignored. Yeah, Elliot asked, could you please highlight the importance of strength training for preventive purposes as well as importance in the rehab process? I'm not sure you can overstate the importance for prevention and rehabilitation. That could be an hour show on its own.
Yeah.
there is no such thing as too much physical detail to go into something as potentially catastrophic as professional bike riding. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So we've got a lot of people said some really nice stuff, and we'll thank you for that. This is the first time ever that this hour is going to run out quick. Lots of people want to see you ride vert. You boxed to a corner, man.
Give me a mouth guard and a full face. Throw me up there.
Yeah. Okay, our friend Brian asks, have you noticed a difference in your bike performance since training at Wolf Brigade? Yep. Go ahead, man.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed with how I feel on my bike is different. I look at, how I can hop differently as opposed to I've always thought I've had a weak bunny hop, and, training, I looked at it like, well, if I'm comfortable with this weight and I can throw my bike like this, I can hop this much higher, and so on. And then I would be like, okay, well, I can probably hop 3 better, and now I can do this, and I can kick a tail with more power. So it's helped me look at a different type of riding when I spend so much time grinding rails and stuff, which is my love for street riding, but opening it up for me to enjoying more things because I feel confident that I have the power to do these things that I've never really spent time working on.
And I mean, all bias aside, watching some of the stuff something like your hard 360 or something like your downside whips or something, there's a power to it now that is based on, of course, the fact that you're improving at bike riding, but also the fact that you just move that thing like it's a toy, and that's always fun to watch, and it's really fun to know that it trails back to just having a lot of strength and power confidence now.
And I think you can look back on, I don't know, the kink intervention video, or even just a web video, whatever I've had from the past couple of years, how I held my bike and how I looked at my bike versus how I look at my bike now could be 2 different people. It's made a world of difference, and it's made me enjoy riding more. And not that I haven't always loved riding to death, but now I'm it's opened my eyes to all this other different stuff, and I'm excited to go session a rail hop or just go try and do stuff that 8 months ago I would have thought, I'll just wait till we find a rail to session on.
Yeah. Awesome. And ultimately that's perfect. And if we were to distill that and kick it out for any other application, I believe it's the same.
Absolutely.
If people are training and their thing is training, then we want that to be how they feel about what they're lifting in the gym or how they're moving or something like that. But when you're transferring that stuff out, again, martial arts and BMX and things like that's what we want. We want them to be able to kind of exert a dominance in those fields based on the fact that they're so well insulated that, everyone's going to get hurt. We're not playing badminton, but at the same time, too, you're going to get hurt way less. And when you get hurt, you're going to bounce back way quicker. And Kent asked a great question. We're going to come back to that.
What's up, Kent?
Hey, man. So my second question to Dan is this, and it's, do you think that there was positive developmental value in being around so much young adult dysfunction as a kid that grew up kid-run skate park? So just to give one sentence of qualification there, the skate park here in Rochester was run by essentially a teenager that had come into a little money and had a great skate park. But I mean, it was a fucking fun house over there. So that was where the question came from. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, without that place shaped me in so many ways, and my entire childhood. So Extreme was great. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I I got accepted into this group of friends, and I'm a 9-year-old child, and I have this group of friends that are 15, 16, 17 now, and they're just 15, 16, 17-year-old great dudes, but total shitheads. They want to wreak havoc. They want to do, they want to do dumb shit.
Yes. Yeah.
So, once they got comfy with me, I just got a lot of shit talk, a lot of fucking getting thrown into vans, whatever. I remember being a child and I was terrified of tarantulas. Like, I hated spiders. And they had this porn magazine that had spiders crawling outside of these girls. And they threw me in a van and made me look at this shit. And it was, like, ridiculous. I'm, like, a 9-year-old kid. Like, a baby. And so it sounds fucked up now. I can get away with that. But, like...
You could say that in 100 years and still make
That's true. But it didn't, like... You know, it made me, like, accept that, A, I didn't want to be like that, but appreciate that I had these older brothers that, you know, they wasn't because they hated me. They wasn't trying to fucking make me cry and break me down. Like,
yeah, yep.
They were, like, I don't know, building me up in a sense.
Because those same dysfunctional maniacs would have done anything in the world for you.
Yeah, and they still will. These guys, I don't even, most of them I barely see anymore. If I fucking called them and needed something, they would be here for me. So,
yep.
And then the rest of them, you know, is...
That's perfect. That's exactly what I was wondering about is I just, I mean, I was, you know, I was living on the periphery at that time. I was in California and we still had strong roots here, but most of what I heard about the park was when I came back to visit or, you know, just through the grapevine. And that was something I've always been kind of curious about. So Dan's next question to me was this: what's the biggest difference you see from a long-term point of view on how the technicality in BMX has changed from the Nowhere Fast days? Nowhere Fast was a really exceptional video that I was just blessed to be a part of helping make and had a couple of short clips in, and it changed an awful lot of stuff. And from the Nowhere Fast days to now, and why do you think it's been such a drastic change? That's a really interesting question too. I guess from the technicality side, man, I don't think anyone then could have thought that it would have gone this far yet. So of course things were getting more technical, but where things are now is I mean, man, off the rails. But from like a gnarly standpoint, I think that's why the technical side improved to the point that it did, because even just thinking about Nowhere Fast, gnarly was covered right then. I mean, there were some things that had gone down in that video, and many of which I was filming the second camera on. And one of my first lessons from Dave Perrick was do not turn that camera off unless someone dies. So, you know, I'd be filming and kind of holding on for dear life and sometimes just wondering what was going to happen. And I mean, I've never been easy to shake up, but some of the stuff that went down there, I believe, set a pretty high standard for the years to come. And so the years following that, it's when people like Edwin came out. So they were taking some of that, you know, kind of gnarly and then adding a lot of really, you know, smart technical stuff in there. And the evolution is just, it's the same as any type of evolution. If you look at something like fighting or, you know, even to a much smaller degree, how we lift kettlebells and maces, you know, it has to get gnarlier and it has to get more technical, and they really have to align. Just gnarly or just technical isn't, I don't know, it's not really anyone's favorite. So, geez, looking at it from a somewhat long-term point of view, the change is shocking but organic. I mean, things had to go the direction they're going, you know?
Yeah. It's crazy.
So let me see what else we got here. Okay, hold on. All right. Oh yeah, Brett says, does your routine help with more pop strength and strength towards riding, or just stamina? I don't know how to get to the end of the question. If that's our only technical difficulty, man, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So I think you can figure out where he's going there, and I think you already also kind of answered it. Is that you've just got more confidence because you're just not worried about anything now.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, you want to go through that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So let's see. Yeah, Brett says, does your training routine help with more pop and strength and towards riding or just stamina?
I'd say, I mean, both. Absolutely
Yeah,
both.
Yep.
But I think the one I pay attention to is the pop, you know, doing kettlebell swings and deadlifts and, you know, squats, all the leg stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the power is what I pay attention to. And then the stamina of a workout, like of, you know, my sets that Greg will write up for me is so much more hell than any sort of trying a trick for 5 hours. Like,
Yeah.
when I finish that workout and I feel like I'm dying, if I got to film a clip that weekend and it's going to take me 6 hours, it's a breeze at that point. I'm like, I'll be fine.
You just need a seltzer. You just need
Yeah, I just need a sparkling water.
Talk for a second about, because when you said kettlebell swings and squats and stuff, talk for a second about the order of operations. And so not only how the strength building, but also just like timing and coordination of that power.
So, yeah. So since, you know, I got comfortable and my shoulder got better and I went to real training, I started to understand that it was kind of a pyramid of heaviest first, and then, you know, a little less heavy, but still heavy, and more of power movements, and then like a cool down. So now even when I'm thinking about what I'll do next after my routine, I know that starting with, like, you know, for me, I have these 250-pound kettlebells I carry around. It looks ridiculous, but starting with
That's awesome.
300 pounds, you know, 5 reps of 300 pounds, then 5 rounds of that, and going down to more like swing movements and, you know, stuff that violent movements, I'd say, is just, and it's helped so much. And I've seen the weight goes up, like how much I can lift each time. You know, I'm going to the gym for 2 months. Every 2 weeks, I see that I can add 10 more pounds, 20 more pounds, you know, maybe 50 more pounds if it's deadlifts. And it's like proven. It's just, it works.
And then the nice thing is when we were making that short video a couple of months ago, looking at even just the actual order of operation in the movement of the bunny hop, it was really cool to start seeing, and even in myself, the mistakes that I was making because I was just protecting, you know, old injuries and stuff like that. But when you think about pulling the bike off the ground in the same way that you're pulling that heavy weight off the ground, man, it's just like this moment of clarity. And that was really cool for me because, I mean, I've trained for a long time and I've ridden for a way longer time, but I hadn't ridden anywhere near well in a really long time because I had some injuries that I hadn't been able to get past. But the more technically I tried to ride, the better it was, and the less it hurt. And of course, the exact same is always true with training.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's 1-to-1. The way you lift the way you lift and the movements is exact for how you're going to bunny hop and how you're going to do this. There's like, it's
true. It's freakishly true. And yeah, I don't know. I eventually that'll catch on. And until it does, man, you're just going to be further ahead of the curve. So fuck it. Let's see what else we got from people, and then we'll go back to your question to me and mine to you. In what areas of your riding has Wolf Brigade training helped you the most? We went over that a little bit. If you have anything additionally on that, Dan, that would be the time. I think that was the last riding related question that we had.
I don't know. I mean, I would just say it's just helped me across the board, you know, with both stamina and power. So I think that's the simplest way to put it.
Yep. Thank you for the great questions tonight, except for these people who are trying to just get us to post their stupid videos. My last question to Dan was this. Anyone that's seen you ride knows you're a detailed and technical guy. Did you ever imagine those characteristics would transfer into physical training? I remember when you came in a few years ago to film some mobility stuff with Tony Hamlin, we had a great talk, but it just maybe hadn't lined up yet.
Yeah. Then, a couple of years ago, absolutely not. I would have never thought that it would be something that I like. Is it good?
Actually enjoyed.
Cut out for a second. Yeah, I never thought it would be something that I would get into or even enjoy on top of that.
Yeah.
But I think just, you know, I had in a year and a half, I snapped 4 ribs. I snapped my kneecap in half. and I separated my shoulder. And that's 3 real injuries. And even mentally at that point, I was like, you know, people have quit riding or ended a pro career for less.
We talked about this. We've talked about this. I mean, and that's, and in my opinion, reasonably so.
Yeah.
Unless you're gonna fucking bury the entire thing, you got to call it when your body tells you no. But that's the thing, is we just don't want our bodies to tell us no. We want to do as much as we can to make sure they don't.
Yeah, and I was at kind of at a mental breaking point where I was like convinced that every time I was going to film something scary, if I was going to go down, it was probably I'd break something and it'd be more time off my bike. And going and training, and it trained me physically, but it also retrained my brain, because now I am confident that I can hit the ground, and that doesn't mean something's going to break or something's going to go wrong, you know? So
yep.
Once I went in there and I realized that I saw the correlation early on, that I was going to listen and take everything in, and I wanted my movements to be proper with everything I lifted and everything I'd swing and whatnot, because what the hell's the point if you're not going to, you know, I'm going there to get stronger and better. And if I'm not going to do it perfectly, then why the fuck am I there in the first place?
Yeah, well, and to me, one thing I liked about that is in the same way that you're not going to guess dive bombing a rail in the rain.
Yeah,
you're not going to guess picking up a gigantic amount of weight that could hurt you easily as bad as that bike.
absolutely.
And for me, and just to tie into martial arts again too, I still to this day, and I never will understand why more people anyway in martial arts and action sports don't see those parallel tracks of you know, power, dexterity, and then application into your sport. It to me, it feels so much the same. And just on a personal note, there is no way without training that I would have ever been able to ride this year, even at a reasonable level.
I hope everyone who's watching this has seen you feeble grind that ledge, seen you go into the skate park, back in the fucking game. It's really awesome.
Thank you. Well, and that's training, of course, but also 100% attributed to the fact that like you helped. Without that would never have happened.
Thank you.
And I've always pedaled around, though. Just because I wasn't posting, you know, things on Instagram doesn't mean that I wasn't riding. But it would be cruising down the street doing some 180s, jumping curbs. I hadn't done anything hard in a long time, and it was confidence, but it was also common sense. I've tested my durability in just about every way I can ever think of, and some of the stuff I just didn't really think would work with BMX anymore. I thought it would be. I didn't think the risk-reward balance would be anywhere equal. So the last question Dan asked me, and then we'll see what else anyone's got on the screen before they kick us off in about 15 minutes. And this is an excellent question. If a baseball player, a non-athletic type, and a BMX rider came to us with the same injury and very little knowledge of strength and conditioning, would you give them the same exercises to get back to 110%, or would you do it case by case? So assessments, diagnostics would be the same. So we need to find out if someone's range is there. We need to find out if their function is there. We need to find out if their brain is there. And all of those things when you start are the same. If you take someone who comes in who's 55 years old that's never done any strength training, Dan who's young and killing it and was injured, and then a guy in his 30s who used to be a good football player but sat on the fucking couch for 15 years, they're going to get a lot of the same pills when they come right in, and then the customization is going to be based on intended application. For the person that's new to training, their goal is going to be to improve at training in order to improve their daily life. You know, if the 30-something wants to go play some fucking flag football or something, then we have to make sure that their body's going to be durable enough to get knocked around by a bunch of other old drunks. And then for someone like Dan, we have to add nuance and accessory based on the fact that it is absolutely certain that he's going to hit the ground. And we have to make sure that past normal end ranges are strong. We have to make sure that midline stability is absolutely unquestionable. So if you build the power source, the middle, then the extension cords are easy. The legs and the arms and all that stuff are simple. So initially, we'll assess and address everyone almost the same. And then where we start ticking the dial differently is when we see people that are going to be doing either higher risk stuff, or if training is going to be their priority, then we love that answer too, and we groom them for that. And Dan, you've been there a lot. You've seen some of the most exceptional people that are the most unassuming people at that place.
Absolutely.
That's our favorite stuff, man. I mean, even today, we posted a lift from a dude that, hey man, he'd lost a significant amount of weight. He's just got a normal desk job, but he comes in and locks it down, trains a lot. He pays attention to his lifestyle outside the gym, and I mean, he's 150, 160 pounds, and he lifted a 176-pound kettlebell to his chin a bunch of times today. There's no faking that, you know. So while we do start everyone in a similar thread, where they're going determines where we go. And I guess the thing is, you have to know how to do that, you know. Painting by numbers only gets you one exact sort of picture. So that was a great question, Dan. Thank you. So we got one new one. Oh yeah, this kid has got a lot of things going on, man. Yeah, I'm sure he remembers you, but right now is not the time for that. Do you want to answer a diet question, Dan, or no?
Sure.
Brett asked, thoughts on being a meat eater again?
I mean, yeah, I was vegan for 3 years, and you know, at the time, it felt like it was helping me, and it felt like I felt good, I felt fine riding and whatnot. But when it came to, you know, amping up my training and going to the gym 3 days a week, and, you know, killing myself for those hours, and then trying to ride every day, there was like a 2-week period where I would literally go to the gym, sleep, try and ride with my friends for a little, eat some food, and go to sleep. And all I wanted to do was sleep, and then I'd force myself to get up to go ride and then work out. And it was like, you know, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't doing anything remotely bad for myself. I was just exhausted. So I was craving salmon, and it started with that. And then I feel like I, you know, added muscle and stamina pretty quickly after that. And I feel pretty good.
And just to editorialize on that for a second, my story was almost the same. I was a vegetarian for many, many years and vegan for quite a long time, 6 years. And I got to a point, I was training kickboxing, I was riding BMX, I was doing strength and conditioning, and I just was not recovering. And part of it is, of course, you can recover and excel on a vegan diet. There's no doubt about it. But I was not. And so my priority had to be, okay, what good am I doing anyone else, animals included, if I'm a disaster that can't even perform to my abilities in my chosen professions? And so I made a similar adjustment many years ago. And for me personally, I wouldn't go back. From an ethical standpoint, I wish the world were perfect and I could be vegan, but I can't. Well, I can't, I won't, I guess is the answer. I can do anything I want. But the reality is, for people who are strength training a lot and putting a ton of impact type demands on their body, you know, the input governs the output and vice versa. And I think that's what we both found. We actually found some common ground on that.
Absolutely.
So we got about like 6 or 7 minutes left. How did Aaron was asking how he and Brett did in your training today?
Brett did pretty good. Aaron, on the other hand,
yeah,
he's got a little ways to go.
We'll work. We'll work on it. We have a long-term investment with Aaron,
Yeah.
and it's fun to see him on here. So if there's any other questions in the actual comments that I'm scrolling through right now, I'm going to grab those, and then they'll probably kick us off. It's great, man. There's a lot of people who are saying they're fans of yours. If you can't see those on the screen, Kent, BMX specific mace work. So I'll take that for one.
Yeah.
And Dan can add to it. Kent, anything with the mace is BMX specific. Anything lateral and imbalancing is very similar to bike riding or fighting or anything like that. That's why, in my opinion, also in my experience, organized heavy kettlebell and mace lifting are the most direct transfers to things like bike riding and fighting that are infinitely variable and very seldom completely linear, because really the mace is in control, man. If you ask it and don't tell it, or if you guess, it will fuck you right up. And the same with heavy kettlebells. So anyway, so go ahead, Dan. Anything you're doing that you like that you want to share with Ken?
I think, I don't know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the mobility alone in my shoulders from doing these 360s is something I've never had. And
that's the opposite of wrong. That's not to take tangents again, but that's unfortunately where most people get stuck with the mace stuff. It improves their mobility, but they don't address the actual details that go into lifting it heavy, or at least heavy enough to be useful. So they don't get the corresponding strength and power and coordination benefits. So people use these baby rattles for swinging around, and they don't really have to know any details because a normal sized human being can swing a 5-pound baby rattle around for fucking 5 hours. And it's going to make your shoulders a little more mobile, but it is not going to make you stronger. It's not going to improve your conditioning, and it's not going to improve your coordination. So anything with the mace is the right answer. Your answer of mobility is I mean, for you is the best answer. The mace is fun, but the strength, the power, dexterity, and the mobility for people that are going to be falling on their arms, man, it's second to none.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great question. And hello, Kent. Thank you, man. One of our favorites of all time.
Great guy.
When you go into Indonesia, man, that's cool.
Not soon enough. That would be awesome. Hopefully someday.
Man, lots of just people. Oh, man, Vish is in there. That's cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah. Brett said having an actual team is a lot stronger than just a team that wants the kids to post tricks every day. I agree with that too. Great, man. This is just a lot of really great supportive stuff here. Nothing really on the great question side that we haven't gotten to. Dan's a real dude. You've talked on the internet. People appreciate you. That's great. So just like we often do before we close off, let's talk about what you guys do to get a little bit closer with Dan. He has X Games Real BMX Park this year that I think is still linked in your bio and Instagram, right?
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. If not, I think one of the two of us can figure out how to put it back there. And then the Kink Champagne DVD that I just heard is free. I'll have to see if one of my friends over there can sell me one for cheap. Ultimately, we want to mention too that Dan is recently our first Wolf Brigade sponsored athlete. We know how that's going to look, but we don't know exactly how it's going to look. One thing that it's definitely going to feature, though, is not just talking about training, but actually figuring out ways to incorporate people that are interested from these fields into training. I'll be down in Austin sooner or later. Dan's going to be up here, and we're going to go visit our place up in Toronto, Atlantic Avenue, in December, and have kind of a little bit of a meetup up there. So if there's people from action sports that are seeing or hearing this in the next 24 hours, or if we put it up on our YouTube, don't just pay it lip service by commenting. Let's see if we can actually improve some people and make this thing worthwhile. Dan, we say this about a lot of our greatest people. Dan is phenomenally strong and talented, but he's not an anomaly. He's not a phenom. He's just a really hard worker that understands what he wants to do and will put anything he needs to into doing it. So it's important to think about the fact that most of the people that you ever see from our play aren't these thoroughbreds that just walk in the door ready to go, that popped out of the womb with 6-pack abs and great arm mobility. We've helped construct these people, but we provide the template, but the reality is it's their hard work and effort that gets this thing done, and Dan's no exception, and we want to get more from action sports, because really we just want to add longevity and enjoyment to people's careers. If you're gonna fall downstairs, you gotta prepare yourself for that. Anyway, anything else, man? You want to?
No, I was just gonna say, it's as simple as, if you want it, you can get it. If you want the strength, you want the mobility, all you gotta do is put in the work, and it's not a math problem. With Wolf Brigade at Atlantic Avenue Athletic Club, they'll show you what to do, and it's that simple. And for me, it is a longevity thing. I love BMX to my core, and I want to be pushing myself for as long as possible. I'm 25. I don't want to call it because I'm 30, and
Wait a minute. So we're gonna flip the script on that whole thing, and people don't know it yet, but that is coming in terms of fighting and in terms of action sports. As soon as this thing lands, the game's over. So just to mention quickly, so we have a place in Northern California that you can learn most of what we're talking about tonight. Our place in Rochester, our place in Toronto. There are a bunch of other people that are associates of ours and accomplices of ours around the country. And ultimately, we also give away so much for free that it's almost irresponsible. Between our website, YouTube, and Instagram, if you're curious about anything that we talked about tonight, there's a paper trail to all of it. And it worked. We got you on the screen, and people could hear and see both of us.
This was easy. This was easier than I thought.
And anything else you want to say, man?
No, I mean, thanks for doing this. I'm glad we did it. And thanks to everyone who watched.
Great. Okay, so we're going to sign off. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you again soon. Ask questions if you have them. See you, Dan.
Bye, guys. See you, Greg.
All right.